Welcome everyone to the completely free AZ-900 Azure Fundamental course. My name is Sullivan. I hold multiple IT industry certifications, and I'm going to be your instructor for this completely free AZ-900 course. Today we're on day 10, and we're going to be learning about Azure for managing resources. After completing today's days, you're going to be able to describe features and tools for managing and deploying Azure resources. You will be able to describe the Azure portal, the Azure Cloud Shell, the Azure CLI, and also Azure PowerShell. You're also going to be able to describe the purpose of Azure Arc, infrastructure as a code, also Azure Resource Management, and the Azure Resource Management templates. So here we are in the Azure portal, and the reason why I took you straight to the Azure portal is because you need to be able to describe what the Azure portal is. And the Azure portal is going to be where you're going to manage your resources, create resources, deploy them. And this is where you're going to see your virtual machines, monitor stores, resource group, Microsoft Entra ID, your Azure SQL database. So basically the Azure portal is this web graphic user interface that you see. Another thing that you need to be able to do while we're here is you need to be able to describe what the Cloud Shell is. And the Cloud Shell is a command line. Think about like PowerShell and Bash, where you can run commands that are integrated in the web graphic user face for your Azure portal. So you're going to see it on your Azure portal as well. Also, another thing you need to be able to describe is the Azure PowerShell. And Azure PowerShell is going to be located here. And this is the same thing as the regular PowerShell, where you can run scripts, but in the cloud. And then you have your CLI, which your Azure CLI is where you can run command line interface for the cloud. Azure Arc is something that you must know for your AZ-900. And what Azure Arc is, this is a bridge that allows you to extend Microsoft Azure management, security tools to servers. You can do Kubernetes clusters and databases running outside of Azure. So think about this. This is a bridge that extends Microsoft Azure management. Remember this for your certification. Infrastructure as code, also known as IaaC. This is basically going to be the practice of managing and setting up computer systems using text files and code instead of doing it by hand. So for example, I want to manage multiple stuff or like run scripts or run a lot of stuff. I can do it over code instead of me doing it manually. So remember when you said infrastructure as code, think about files or code that allow me to make things faster using codes, templates, or files. Remember this for your AZ-900. Azure Resource Manager. This is going to be the core deployment and management service for Microsoft Azure. There's going to be templates that utilize declarative, either JSON or bicep. They use syntax to deploy and configure entire applications predictively and consistency. The way to remember the two types of files, JSON and bicep, JSON are a little bit more complex. Bicep are a little bit easier to read and understand. Remember this for your AZ-900. So here's a quick recap of what we learned today. And we learned to describe features and tools for managing and deploying Azure resources. I'll walk you through how to navigate the Azure portal. I'll give you a quick explanation of what the Azure portal is for you to know for your AZ-900. We described the Azure Cloud Shell, what it is. Like that's where you run commands and it's on the web. The Azure CLI, that's a command line interface. And the Azure PowerShell, which is the same thing as regular PowerShell, is just going to be located on Azure web portal. We described the Azure Arc. That's the bridge that allows me to communicate. I'll show you what infrastructure as code is. Remember, this is templates, code files for all the stuff to manage things easier. And then I show you what the Azure Resource Management and the ARM, the templates, JSON, and bicep. Remember this for your certification. As you guys already know, in this course, at the end of the day, we do 5 to 10 practice questions just to make sure that we understand every single thing of this AZ-900 course. So let's start with our questions. So here we are, guys, with question number 1. And today we're going to do 6 questions just for you guys. So we're going to focus on 6 questions. So let's start with number 1. Which management tool provides a browser-based graphical user interface GUI for creating and managing resources? Remember, I show you this, I'll walk you through this, and basically this is going to be the Azure portal. But let's see what we have. We have Azure PowerShell. That's where I'm gonna run scripts, commands. So definitely I can discard it. I don't use a GUI for a PowerShell. Azure CLI, I can also delete it because I also don't use a GUI. I use commands. And Azure Arcs, this is my bridge. So correct answer, Azure Portal. The Azure Portal is the primary web-based console for managing and deploying resources via a graphical interface. Next, question number 2. Which tool allows you to run Bash or PowerShell commands directly within a web browser without installing software locally? Remember, I showed you this. This is the Azure Cloud Shell. But let's analyze the rest ones. The Azure Advisor, this is what's gonna allow me to advise prices for things that I have to like make recommendations. So it advises me. Azure Monitor, this is where I'm gonna monitor services that are running on the background, see what things are happening. Azure Service Health, this is where I'm gonna see the service like, oh, what needs to be updated, what needs to be patched, what's running bad, what can cause issue. Correct answer right here, guys, is Azure Cloud Shell. Azure Cloud Shell is an interactive browser accessible shell for managing Azure resources through a terminal environment. Next, what is the primary purpose of using Azure Arc? Detecting security threats. Security threats could be encrypting network traffic. Doesn't encrypt, so we can delete that one. Lowering storage costs, no. Managing hybrid resources. This is a tricky one, guys, but remember, this is my bridge, so correct answer is going to be managing my hybrid resources, And this is because, remember, when I talk about Azure Arc, I refer as a bridge, and we can read the explanation. And Azure Arc extend Azure management services to servers, container, and database located on the on-premises and their cloud. Remember, detecting security threats is not like some sort of detection system. It doesn't encrypt data, and it doesn't lower the cost. So correct answer is the managing hybrid resources. What is the major benefit of using infrastructure as code IAC for deploying Azure resources? So the question right here is asking us, what's the major benefit? Eliminating subscription costs, it doesn't eliminate anything, so we can automatically discard this one. Ensuring deployment repeatability, it could help me. Yes, this could be the correct answer, but let's keep reading. Decreasing internet bandwidth, it definitely does not decrease my internet speed. Increase manual configuration, it's the opposite. It decreases manual configuration. So correct answer is going to be V, ensuring deployment repeatability. So remember, if I want to minimize the repeatable stuff, like I can just do infrastructure as a code. And infrastructure as code allows you to define infrastructure in files, ensuring environments are created identically every time they are deployed. Next, which serves as the central management layer that handles all requests to create, update, or delete Azure resources? This is a service that serves as the central management layer. Remember, I talk about the central management layer where you do the handle of requests, create, update, or delete Azure resources. And this is going to be the Azure Resource Management. But let's keep analyzing this. Azure Policy, I'm not setting up policies. Azure Active Directory, which right now is Microsoft Entra ID. Before it used to be Azure Active Directory, but now it's Microsoft Entra ID. Azure Blueprints has nothing to do with this. Correct answer, Azure Resource Manager, guys. Azure Resource Management is the management layer that receives API requests and authenticates them before performing actions. Next, in what format are Azure Resource Manager ARM templates written with? Remember, I talked about the format: HTML, hypertext. I forgot what HTML stands for. Hypertext transfer. Forgot what it is, but definitely it's not HTML. That's for web applications, to create web applications. The correct answer is JSON, but let's keep reading. XML is also to like web applications, and CSV files. Those are going to be files for for like deploying stuff. So the correct answer is JSON. And an ARM template uses JavaScript notation, JSON. So basically what JSON stands for is a JavaScript notation to define the infrastructure and configuration for a deployment. Remember this? So we're done for today's questions. I want to say congratulations. We're close to the end of this course. So keep watching these videos and subscribe, like, comment, do all that stuff that you guys been doing, and see you guys on the next video.